So Joe Rogan just sat down with Bernie Sanders and tried, bless his heart, to have a real conversation about climate change. And Bernie, well, he showed up like a man who laminated his talking points in 1987 and never looked back. We'll roll the clip and that'll walk you through what Rogan actually got right and what Bernie absolutely refused to process.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
You got to deal with this climate change issue. And I know that, there are some people who think climate change is a hoax. It ain't a hoax. I think the last 10 years have been the warmest on record.
I think the climate change issue is very complicated. And I think, did you see the Washington Post piece that they wrote where they did this long-term view? First of all, the reality is that the Earth's temperature has never been static, right? We could both agree on that. It's always been up and down. There's been ice ages and heat waves. And then the Washington Post looked at it. What was the time period that they looked at? That essentially they found that we're in a cooling period. That the Earth over the past X amount of years, and this was like a very inconvenient discovery, but they had to report the data, and kudos to them for doing that. Scientists have captured the Earth's climate change over the last 485 million years. Here's a surprising place we stand now. So look at the far end of that graph, and you see we're in a cooling period.
Well, I'm not sure. I didn't read that article, but
Yeah.
the scientists who are out there, I think.
I know, but there's a lot of money involved in that too, Bernie. That's part of the problem. There's a lot of money involved in this whole climate change emergency issue, and there's a lot of control, and that's a big part of this problem. Not only that, if we're just talking about primarily carbon and carbon footprint, what are we going to do about China? Because China and
Absolutely. It's not an American issue. It is a global issue. And all I can tell you is that we are, in my view, going to see more extreme weather disturbances in the coming years than we have ever. And we're seeing them right now.
Right, but scientists don't agree. Well, this is where it gets confusing. Because scientists that are in agreement, there's all these entanglements. Whenever someone's discussing something, whether it's economics or whether it's health issues or pharmaceutical drugs, there's financial entanglements. I think we both agree with that, right?
Yep.
And I think this is part of the issue with this whole climate change emergency as well, because whenever there's an issue that everyone can agree on, you're going to have a bunch of people that capitalize on that issue, and they look to gain more money. They have financial issues that they push forward in order to capitalize on this issue, but then also power and control. These things like they're trying to institute in the UK where they have these 15-minute cities, this concept where you're not allowed to travel. They'll be able to look at your carbon footprint. See, that's the problem. The problem is giving people that are in power, these people that we've all discussed that have so much money and so much control over our societies, multinational corporations, giving them more control over citizens. And this is a vehicle for that. And this is what's dangerous about this whole climate change emergency, because it allows these creeps that have been controlling people and controlling what you do and what you say and how you spend your money with people that already live in check to check, and you put additional constraints on them and you make them even more scared. And then you put additional measures where you can look at their carbon footprint, you can look at the amount they travel, put a carbon tax on these people, let's figure out how to extract more money from them. That's what bothers me about this climate change emergency.
Like I said, that was classic Bernie Sanders. So Joe Rogan brings data and long-term climate context and political incentives, while Bernie's answers are like a screen door on a submarine. Colorful, but not very useful.
Oh man, now whose bright idea was this?
Okay, so let's try to unpack this. The warmest years on record? On what record, Bernie? Yes, recent years are warm on the 140-year thermometer record. The problem is that's just a microscopic snapshot of Earth's climate history. It's like reading one paragraph of a novel and insisting you understand all the plot twist. When you zoom out to actual Earth history and the temperature swings make modern changes look like a gentle wobble. Rogan's right. Context should be the go-to, not cherry-picked headlines. Bernie seems to think context is a conspiracy. But all the scientists agree. Well, they don't. Bernie grips that line like it's a life preserver, but scientists only agree on the broad strokes. As far as the catastrophic predictions and extreme policy demands, yeah, it's not even close. And the IPCC, the United Nations climate experts, well, their climate models have been wrong more often than Bernie Sanders has yelled, millionaires and billionaires. Then finally, the hypocrisy, the part Bernie completely sidestepped. Rogan lays it out when he talks about the fact that the climate alarmism priesthood lives on private jets and super yachts while telling you to cut back, shut up, ride a bicycle, and live 15 minutes from your boss. Their solutions always boil down to they get to keep the luxury and you get the lifestyle downgrade. And the worst part, their policies harm the poor and developing nations the most because nothing says compassion like telling struggling families they need less energy while the global elites burn enough jet fuel in an afternoon to power a small city.
It sound right, boy.
So, what's the big takeaway? Joe Rogan's authentic wisdom is that he asks better questions. He refuses to accept the pre-packaged framing handed out by the climate alarmist clerics. He zooms out. He looks at incentives. He rejects the shut up and obey rhetoric that comes disguised as science. Meanwhile, Senator Bernie Sanders, well, it's kind of sad, honestly, because Bernie Sanders might just prove that old adage true. You can't teach an old dog new tricks, especially when he's Pavlov's dog. You ring the climate bell, and he starts barking the same slogans every time. Hey, I'm Brian Tutterman with today's Paycheck News. Would you like and subscribe? Comment below. Do you still believe in man-made catastrophic global warming? Or do you think there's another agenda at play?